Hello. So, I think lots of you will know that today is Halloween. And Halloween is a very special day. And we're going to do a little story for you all about Halloween. So, settle down and let's see how we get on. Story time, follow me. Take a seat, settle down, let's all see. I can see a rainbow shining red, green, gold and blue, and I would like to climb it now with you and you and you into a storyland. And in our storyland, it's very much autumn. The trees, only the oak trees have still got some leaves on. And in this storyland, there's a little yellow house with a red roof. And in that house live Grandma and Grandpa and our friends Peter and Lily. There they are. And Peter and Lily are tucked up in bed, fast asleep. And somebody comes to wake them up. They've got a very Halloweeny black cat in their house called Blackie. And she comes and she jumps on the bed and goes meow, 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 and licks their faces and licks them again until they wake up. And they say, hello, Blackie, do you want breakfast? And they all go downstairs to get their breakfast. They can hear the wind outside. It's a windy Halloween Eve today. Down they go. And downstairs, Grandma has been cooking the porridge. Peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold, peas porridge in a pot, 9 days old. Some like it hot, some like it cold, some like it in a pot, 9 days old. And she gives the children a lovely bowlful, a bowl for her and Grandpa. And there are still some blackberries to be picked. And so for breakfast today with their porridge, they mix in the blackberries and it makes the porridge go all purple. Soon their tummies are full of porridge and they're very satisfied. And Grandma said, we've got a special job to do today. So I need you to get your boots and your coats and your hats on. And I need you to come with me to help me do a special job. And the children said, oh, Grandma, what's that special job? And she said, you'll see. So they got on their coats and their hats and their boots all ready for the cold day, the windy day. And off they went outside with Grandma. And Grandma said, we are going down to the pumpkin patch because today we must harvest the pumpkins. So down they went, where the finest crop of pumpkins could be found. There was even a giant one that Grandma and Grandpa had grown this year. And so together, they all picked the pumpkins and they put them into a big wheelbarrow and they wheeled them back home. And Grandma said, there's something we can do with these pumpkins that's very good for Halloween. And she asked the children to choose one each, one pumpkin each, which they did. They chose nice ones. And then she showed them how you can chop off the top of the pumpkin and scoop out all the middle to make soups and pies. And then you can cut out eyes and nose and spiky teeth for mouth. And then you can put a little candle inside, and when it's dark it will shine like a jack-o'-lantern. And the children were really, really pleased with their cutting and their scraping, their beautiful jack-o'-lanterns that they made. Here we are, 2 fine jack-o'-lanterns that the children made from their pumpkins. There they are. And Grandma said, now children, why don't we light a fire and I will tell you a story about how the first jack-o'-lantern was made. And the children said, oh yes, please Grandma. And she said, first of all, I'm going to tell you a rhyme about making pumpkins into jack-o'-lanterns. It goes like this. I'm a little pumpkin, round and fat. Turn into a jack-o'-lantern, just like that. And the children thought that was really funny, and they did it too. I'm a little pumpkin, round and fat. Turn into a jack-o'-lantern, just like that. And they did it over and over because it was so much fun. And then they all settled down by the fire, and Grandma started to tell them the story of how the first jack-o'-lanterns were ever made. Now, this story has in it a naughty little woodland elf. Can you see our little woodland elf if I bring him close? There he is. And this little woodland elf, he lived in the woods in a dark, dark cave. There's his little cave. And when it was in the middle of the night, our little naughty woodland elf used to get up to lots and lots of mischief in the village. So when all the villagers were fast asleep, here they are, fast asleep in their beds, our naughty little elf used to wait until the moon came up. And when the moon was high in the sky, he used to sneak slowly, slowly, slowly out of his cave, creep, 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 and he'd go to the village and he'd get up to all sorts of mischief. The first thing that he would like to do is go to the villagers' houses, and he would go, knock, 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 on the doors. And the people inside would hear a knocking, and up they'd get, and they'd go to their doors very wearily, and rubbing their eyes, and they'd open the door, and they'd look left and right. But that naughty little woodland elf would be hiding away, and so they wouldn't see anybody. So off they'd go back to bed, shut the door again, tuck themselves up in bed, and then that little woodland elf would go to their door again and go, knock, 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 until someone else had to get up and go and look left and right and see if could see anyone, and there'd be nobody there because little woodland elf would be hiding away, peeping, going at his naughty trick. And so that would go on, and then he'd go to the next house and do the same, knock, 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 and on it would go so that nobody would get a wink of sleep. And then when he'd had a lot of fun with his mischief, he'd go creeping back to his little house, cave in the woods, in the dark woods, until the next night. And the next night, when everybody was fast asleep, tucked up in bed, do you know another trick that he liked to do? Well, he used to come creeping, creeping when the moon was in the sky, out of his cave, and he'd go to the hen house, where the hens are all fast asleep. Cluck, cluck, cluck. They would make a noise if they were awake, but they don't. And he'd go sneaking, sneaking, and out of that hen house, he would take the eggs. He would take those eggs, and he would hide them away. Hide them where nobody could find them. He would hide them away. And then, in the morning, when the children came to get the eggs from the hen house, they would come out and they would look and they would look and they would find no eggs, and they'd have to search high and low. And the little man, the little woodland elf, would be laughing his head off, watching the children search. Oh, and it would take them a long time to find all the eggs because of that naughty little woodland elf. And then he would creep back home to his cave and wait for another night to do more mischief. Well, another of his favourite tricks when everybody was fast asleep was to go to the cowshed. And so he would go to the cowshed. Here he comes when the moon is up in the sky, creeping out of his cave, in the woods, out the woods to the cowshed, and he would creep in where the cows were fast asleep. And do you know what he would do? This is such a naughty, naughty thing to do. He would go to the cows while they were asleep, and he would tie their tails up together. Well, they wouldn't know because they were asleep. And then he would creep away to watch what happened in the morning. And in the morning, when the farmer got up to let the cows out of the shed to go and eat the grass, graze the grass, the poor cows wouldn't be able to move because their tails are tied together, and they'd pull this way and that way and go moo, moo, moo until they fell over. Oh, what a commotion. And the poor farmer would have to be calming down his cows. Oh, my goodness. Oh, and untying their tails. Oh, dear, dear, dear. And all the time, that little woodland elf, that naughty little elf, would be going watching all his mischief coming to fruition. And then he'd go creeping back to his house in the woods, his dark cave, ready to do more mischief. Well, all the villagers were completely fed up, totally and utterly fed up of this naughty little woodland elf. And so they got together and they said, what can we do? Well, one boy, Peter, had an idea. And he said, there are pumpkins ready to be harvested, aren't there? And everyone said, yes, oh yes, there are pumpkins. And so he said, let's go and harvest all the pumpkins. So all the villagers went down to the pumpkin patch and they harvested all those beautiful orange round pumpkins. And then Peter showed them how he had the idea of taking a pumpkin, cutting off the top, scraping out the middle, cutting eyes, staring eyes, a nose and a spiky mouth with teeth, and then popping a candle inside and putting those little jack-o'-lanterns that they made in front of their front doors. And that is what they did. Every villager took the pumpkins and made them into jack-o'-lanterns. I'm a little pumpkin, round and fat, turn into a jack-o'-lantern, just like that. And then they put the jack-o'-lanterns outside their doors with the candles flickering so you could see staring eyes and sharp teeth. And they put them outside their doors, ready for the woodland elf. And then they went back to sleep, to their beds, tucked up. And sure enough, when the moon came up and he was sure everyone was in bed, the little woodland elf came creeping, creeping to do his mischief. And he was just going to the first door to go, knock, 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 when he saw two great big eyes staring at him and sharp teeth in a mouth. And he thought it was a monster staring at him, so he ran and ran and ran to the next house. But there, what did he find? Staring eyes with bright lights glaring at him in the darkness, and the next house, and the next house. And he was so scared that away he ran back to his cave. And do you know what? He never bothered the villagers again, thanks to their jack-o'-lanterns. And that is the story of how jack-o'-lanterns came to be made around Halloween. Well, Peter and Lily did like that story. And after they'd listened to the story, they all sat down and had a delicious bowl of pumpkin soup. And they got their jack-o'-lanterns ready for Halloween night, and they put them out on their doorsteps with a little candle in. And that night, they slept easy in their beds. Grandma sang them their favourite lullaby. Lullaby and good night, those blue eyes close tight. Rest now without fear, for we are all gathered here. Close your eyes now and rest, may thy slumber be blessed. Close your eyes now and rest, may thy slumber be blessed. That's the end of our Halloween story. No more work and no more play. Every toy is put away, and it is a lovely day. Then good night. Drink your milk all white and creamy. Have your bath all warm and steamy. Close your eyes all tired and dreamy. Then good night. Through the window stars are peeping. From their holes the mice are creeping. Your soft bed all white for sleeping. Then